The music stopped. Not for a commercial break, not for a technical glitch, but because Ellen DeGeneres had just witnessed something that made her forget she was hosting a television show. In the third row of her studio audience, a 12-year-old boy was struggling to speak, and his silence was louder than any applause she'd ever heard. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon taping at the Ellen DeGeneres Show. The studio buzzed with familiar energy, bright lights, dancing audience members, and Ellen working the crowd with her signature warmth. The guest lineup was standard, but sometimes the most powerful moments aren't planned. Alex Martinez sat in the third row, clutching a small piece of paper that he'd folded and refolded so many times the creases had become permanent. His mother, Carmen, sat beside him, stealing glances at her son with protective love. They had driven 14 hours from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to be in that audience. Not for the celebrity guests or the prize giveaways, but because Alex had something he needed to say to Ellen DeGeneres, something he'd been practicing for months, but had never been able to say out loud. Not completely, not without the words getting tangled in his throat like fishing line caught in a reel. Alex had severe stuttering, the kind that turns simple conversations into mountain climbs, that makes reading aloud in class a nightmare, that causes other kids to finish his sentences for him. But Alex had been watching Ellen for 3 years. Every day after school, he would watch Ellen make people laugh, make them cry, make them feel seen. And somewhere in those afternoons, watching Ellen be herself with such fearless authenticity, Alex began to believe that maybe his words mattered too, even if they came out broken. The show had been rolling for 30 minutes. Ellen had already interviewed the celebrity guest, charming, as always, making even the most rehearsed anecdotes sound spontaneous. The viral internet star had performed their routine to thunderous applause. "You taught us that courage sounds different for everyone. For some people, courage is climbing mountains or starting businesses or moving to new cities. For you, courage sounds like taking the time to find your words and then having the strength to share them." Ellen stood up and addressed her entire studio. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I've been hosting this show for 20 years. I can honestly say that Alex Martinez just gave me the most important interview of my career." The applause was deafening. Alex looked around the studio in wonder, seeing 200 people on their feet, clapping, not just for him, but with him, sharing in his moment of triumph. Carmen Martinez was crying so hard she could barely see, but they were tears of joy, tears of pride, tears of relief for a mother who had watched her son struggle with something so fundamental as speaking and had just witnessed him not only find his voice, but use it to inspire an entire television studio. Ellen walked Alex back to his seat, but before he sat down, she had one more surprise. "Alex, I want to ask you something, and you can say no if you want to," Ellen said. "Would you like to come back next week? Not as a guest, but as my co-host for the opening segment? I think our audience would love to hear more from you." Alex's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really?" "Really," Ellen confirmed. "But only if you want to. No pressure. You've already done the hard part. You've proven that your voice matters." "Yes," Alex said without hesitation, and this time there was no struggle with the word at all. "Yes, I would love that." Ellen grinned her famous grin. "Then, it's a date? Alex Martinez, everybody. My new co-host." The audience erupted again, and this time Alex waved them with the confidence of someone who had just discovered something amazing about himself. As the show wrapped up and the audience began to file out, Ellen found herself thinking about the courage card she'd given Alex. She hadn't told him what she'd written on it, but the words were simple and true. "Your voice is exactly what the world needs to hear. Don't ever stop using it." Ellen. 6 months later, Alex would give a speech at his middle school graduation, speaking clearly about perseverance and kindness. He would keep Ellen's courage card in his wallet for years, taking it to speech competitions, college interviews, and eventually to his job interview at a nonprofit helping children with speech disorders. But on this Tuesday afternoon, Alex was just a 12-year-old boy who had found his voice and used it to remind everyone watching that the most powerful words are often the ones that are hardest to say. Ellen DeGeneres had given away thousands of gifts over the years, but the gift she gave Alex that day, the gift of being truly heard, was perhaps the most valuable of all. The courage card Alex carried home was more than cardboard and ink. It was proof that sometimes the most powerful moments happen not when we speak perfectly, but when we speak truthfully. Now, Ellen was transitioning into what she called connecting with the audience. Her favorite part of every show when she would scan the crowd, pick out interesting faces, and create those unscripted moments that reminded everyone why they loved her. So many beautiful faces out there today, Ellen said, walking to the edge of the stage with her wireless microphone. The studio lights caught the silver streaks in her short blonde hair, and her smile was as warm as ever. She wore a light gray blazer over a white t-shirt, and her signature jeans, comfortable, approachable, real. "I love this part," she continued, her eyes moving across the audience. "You never know what stories are sitting out there, what journeys people have taken just to be here." She paused near section B, her gaze sweeping across the faces. Sometimes the most interesting conversations happen when you just ask someone. That's when she saw him. Alex was looking directly at her, but something about his expression stopped Ellen mid-sentence. It wasn't starstruck excitement or nervous energy. It was something deeper. His eyes held a kind of intensity that seemed too mature for his young face, and his hands were gripping that folded piece of paper like it contained something precious. "Hey there," Ellen said, pointing toward Alex with her microphone hand while stepping down the small stairs that led into the audience. "You in the blue shirt? What's your name?" The studio audience turned to look at Alex. 200 faces suddenly focused on him. The cameras swiveled to capture the moment. The bright studio lights seemed to intensify, and Alex could feel his heart hammering against his ribs like a bird trying to escape a cage. He opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out. Not silence exactly, but something worse. The visible struggle of words trapped between his brain and his voice. The seconds stretched like hours. But Ellen wasn't thinking about television anymore. She was looking at a 12-year-old boy who was fighting a battle with his own voice, and she recognized something in his eyes that made her forget about cameras and ratings and show format entirely. She saw courage. Ellen had spent decades understanding what it meant to struggle with finding your voice. She'd navigated coming out in Hollywood when it wasn't safe, built a talk show empire on authenticity, even when it was difficult. Without hesitation, Ellen stepped off the small platform and walked directly into the audience. She moved past the first row, past the second, until she was standing right next to Alex's seat. The cameras followed her, but she wasn't performing anymore. She was just being present. "Hey," she said softly, kneeling down so she was at Alex's eye level. Her voice carried just enough to be picked up by her wireless microphone, but her tone was intimate, personal. "Take your time. There's no rush here." Alex looked into Ellen's eyes, kind eyes, patient eyes, and tried again. "My name." The words fought him, consonants colliding with each other, vowels stretching into uncomfortable lengths. His face reddened with effort and embarrassment. Carmen, his mother, reached over and placed a gentle hand on Alex's shoulder. She wanted help, to speak for him, as she'd done countless times before, but something in Ellen's presence made her wait. "My name is—" Alex tried again, the words catching in his throat like stones. Some audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward, willing him to succeed. The studio fell into a respectful quiet that was rare for a daytime talk show. Ellen remained perfectly still, perfectly patient. She didn't try to finish his sentence or rush him along. She didn't make a joke to break the tension or redirect attention elsewhere. She simply waited, her full attention focused on this brave boy who was fighting to be heard. Alex, he finally managed, the word bursting out with such relief that he immediately smiled. My name is Alex. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause, genuine appreciation of people who had just witnessed something real and beautiful. Alex, Ellen repeated, and somehow when she said his name, it sounded important. That's a strong name. I'm Ellen. She extended her hand, and Alex shook it with the seriousness of someone who understood they were participating in something significant. I know who you are, Alex said, and this time the words came a little easier. I watch you every day. Ellen's expression softened further. Every day? That's a lot of Ellen. Don't you get tired of seeing this face? She pointed to herself with a self-deprecating grin. And Alex laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that made several audience members smile. No, Alex said firmly. You make me feel. He paused, not from stuttering this time, but because he was searching for the right word. His hand moved to the folded paper in his lap. You make me feel like my words matter, he finished quietly. Ellen felt something shift inside her chest. Never had anyone told her that she made their words matter, especially not someone who clearly struggled to find those words. Alex, Ellen said, her voice noticeably softer now. Can I ask you something? Alex nodded. Is that paper in your hand something you wanted to share? Alex looked down at the folded paper, then back at Ellen. His mother, Carmen, leaned forward slightly, unsure whether to encourage him or protect him from what might be too much exposure. I wrote you a letter, Alex said, his words careful but clearer now. But I've never been able to read it out loud. All the way through, Ellen glanced at the cameras, then back at Alex. In that moment, she made a decision that would define not just this episode, but her understanding of what her show could be at its very best. Would you like to try? Ellen asked. Right here, right now. And if it gets too hard, we'll figure it out together. Alex took a deep breath that seemed to come from his toes. He looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly, then back at Ellen. Okay, he whispered. Ellen stood up and gestured to the production team. Can we get Alex a chair up here? She called out, abandoning all pretense of following a script. Actually, you know what? Let's do this right. Without asking permission from producers, Ellen grabbed a chair from her guest area and set it down next to Alex's row. This is your stage now, Ellen said simply. Alex stood up slowly, his legs shaky with nerves and adrenaline. Carmen squeezed his hand once before letting him go. The audience watched in complete silence as this 12-year-old boy walked the few steps to the chair Ellen had provided and sat down. Ellen remained standing next to him, close enough to offer support, but not so close as to overwhelm him. She held her microphone so it would pick up his voice clearly. Alex unfolded the paper with trembling fingers. The creases were white with wear, and Ellen could see that the writing was careful, deliberate, the handwriting of someone who had spent a long time choosing each word. Dear Ellen, Alex began, his voice stronger now. 3 years ago, I stopped talking at school because kids would laugh when words got stuck in my mouth. Then my mom started letting me watch your show after school. I started really listening to how you talked to people. You never rushed them. You never finished their sentences. You acted like every person had something important to say. I started practicing talking while I watched your show. I would pretend I was a guest, and you were interviewing me. And in my pretend interviews, my words came out perfect. Alex looked up at Ellen, You taught me that having trouble speaking doesn't mean I don't have anything important to say. I saved up money for 8 months to come see your show, not because I wanted to be on TV, but because I wanted to tell you thank you. Thank you for showing me that being different isn't the same as being wrong. Thank you for proving that kindness is more important than being perfect. And thank you for teaching me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. The studio was completely silent, except for the quiet sounds of people crying. Ellen looked around at her audience, at her crew, at the cameras that were capturing this unscripted moment of pure human connection. Alex, Ellen said, kneeling down again, so she was at his level. I need to tell you something, and I need you to remember this for the rest of your life. Alex folded the letter carefully and looked at Ellen with complete attention. You didn't come here to thank me, Ellen said, her voice clear and strong. I need to thank you, because you just reminded me why I do this show. It's not for the ratings or the awards or the famous guests. It's for moments like this, for people like you who remind me that television can be more than entertainment. It can be a bridge between people who need to feel less alone. Ellen reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small card. It was one of her personal business cards, but she flipped it over to the blank side. I want to write something for you, Ellen said, pulling a pen from her other pocket. And I want you to keep this with you for whenever you need a reminder of how brave you are. She wrote quickly on the back of the card, shielding it so Alex couldn't see what she was writing. When she finished, she folded the card once and handed it to him. This is your courage card, Ellen said. Don't open it now. Save it for a day when speaking feels impossible, when the words won't come, when you feel like giving up. Open it then, and remember today. Remember that you stood in front of 200 people and a television audience and spoke your truth. Remember that your words mattered so much that they stopped a television show. Alex took the card with both hands, holding it like the treasure it was. Can I hug you? He asked, and, for the first time since he'd started speaking, there wasn't a trace of a stutter in his voice. Ellen didn't answer with words. She simply opened her arms, and Alex stepped into them. It was the kind of hug that communicated everything words couldn't: pride, gratitude, recognition, hope. The audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause, but Ellen and Alex remained in their embrace for several more seconds, both of them understanding that this moment was bigger than television, bigger than entertainment, bigger than anything either of them had planned. When they finally separated, Ellen kept her hands on Alex's shoulders. Alex, I want you to know something else, she said, speaking clearly so her microphone would pick up every word. Every single person in this studio right now, everyone watching at home, everyone who will see this later, they all just learned something from you.